Hello, it is good to see all of your pretty faces watching our pretty faces here on The Sweat. You are beautiful, young man. 60 minutes from our weekend, so we're going to make this super easy for you. He's Brendan. I'm Emerson. What's cooking on the program tonight, please?
We will dive a little deeper into those Week 1 NFL salaries. PGA Weekend Showdown picks for the Wyndham Championship are coming your way, as well as our conversation with Tony Walters of the Rockies.
Who is rocking a hell of a sweet and tight lip sweater.
Never could do it.
You could not. You still got the baby face.
Yes.
You'll get to it eventually. And since we're talking baseball, let's start with baseball. Hello to this evening's panel, Steve Buchanan and Greg Ehrenberg of DK Live and the Action Network's Matt LaMarca.
All right, boys, it's a 12-game slate. Let's chase or fade some of the bets available on the DK Sportsbook. We're going to start with Dodgers' top pitching prospect, Dustin May, on the mound tonight facing the Padres. LA is minus 162, a favorite in this rookie's debut. Chase or fade that May delivers a W for the Dodgers tonight, Steve?
Yeah, it's when you're looking at the Padres lineup now, especially without Franmil Reyes, it looks like a lineup you want to attack now. They lost one of their best bats when they traded him away in that 3-team deal. And then you see May, he's flashed some good potential in the K potential in the minors. Faces a team with the third highest K percentage in the league at 26.3%. Only a 307 wall, 78 isolated power against righty. So this is definitely a matchup you want to take advantage of. I know it's the kid's first start, but there's a team you want to go after for the first time. Padres would definitely be that team.
Greg, your thoughts, chase or fade?
So I'm going to fade this, and it doesn't really have that much to do with how I think of May as a prospect or anything like that. It's just that this is his first start, and the Dodgers are a really big favorite for this game. And it's just hard for me to trust him in his first outing as a minus 160 favorite. If you look at his minor league numbers, on the surface, they look good. He's a 2.3 ERA, but he's been a bit lucky. He's a 4.82 xFIP. He's benefited from low BABIP, a high strand rate. So I think the Dodgers are more likely to win this game than to lose. I just don't agree with the price on them.
And Matt, do you have a similar take to either of those guys, or are you going elsewhere?
I'm kind of in the middle. I do think that the Dodgers will win this game, but I am not particularly bullish on May being the reason why. Dave Roberts is pretty notorious for having a quick hook on his pitchers. So I could see May getting pulled, even if he's pitching well, before he could even factor into the decision. So I don't even know if May gets the win, but I do think that the Dodgers here are, nice favorites. The Padres lineup, as Steve mentioned, is pretty poor at this point against right-handers. Their projected lineup, 297 WOBA and a 30.4% strikeout rate against right-handers over the past 12 months. So I like May a little bit more, I think, than Greg does, but still I can't back him in DFS just because I don't know if he goes that deep into this game.
All right, let's go from one debut to another. We'll see Jason Vargas in a Phillies uniform for the first time tonight facing the White Sox. He was traded on Monday. Hasn't been great throughout his career, though, pitching in Philadelphia. Listen to this, guys. I'm talking an ERA over 6 and 4 appearances at Citizens Bank Park. So, Greg, chase or fade Chicago is a good pick at plus 175. White Sox have lost 4 straight games, haven't scored more than 2 runs in any of those losses.
Yeah, so I'm going to chase. You know why Vargas hasn't been that good pitching in Philadelphia? Because he hasn't been that good pitching pretty much anywhere for most of his career. He's just not been a very good pitcher. Now, he has pitched much better than I would have expected at this point in the season. I would have said before the year that he'd be probably like an ERA around 6 or 5.5 or something this point of the year. He has a 4.01 ERA. That's fairly respectable. But still, he's heading for regression. He has a really low BABIP, 253, even though he's giving up a 40% hard contact rate. I think now that he's pitching in more of a hitter-friendly park in Philadelphia as opposed to a pitcher-friendly park like Citi Field, I think we're going to start to see Vargas give up a lot more runs.
Okay, Matty, let's see. Vargas has not faced the White Sox since 2017. You thinking Chicago's a good pick, though, plus 175?
No, I'm going with Philly. Vargas may not be a great pitcher, but Chicago is just a really bad offensive team. You look at their lineup, 290 WOBA, 33.4% strikeout rate against left-handers over the past 12 months. So Vargas, for as mediocre as he may be, he does have one of the better batted ball profiles in the league. I think he's generating the 15th lowest average exit velocity this season. And I think that he has more strikeout upside than usual in this matchup. So if he can do what he normally does, which is limit the damage on balls in play and pick up a few additional strikeouts, I think that this is actually a pretty good spot for him to earn a win in his debut.
All right, Steven, I know Greg mentioned he just hasn't been great, but I do believe he has exceeded expectations. He's given up 4 earned runs or less in 18 of his 19 appearances, which I don't think many of us saw coming here.
He's still a fraud. I mean, he still sucks. Let's be serious. This is still considered a road start. Even though he's at home now, this is pretty much a road start because
Why?
all of his – be quiet, Matt. Let me explain why, you dummy. This is a road start because all of his home numbers are at Citi Field. Home is not Citi Field anymore. So
wait. But what home field advantage is, it's not because he's used to pitching a certain park. It's because the umpires are a little bit biased towards giving calls towards whoever the home pitcher is.
Yes, Steve.
Is that your big point? Was that your big thunder?
It's a very fair point. What's your counterpoint? It's not he's all of a sudden on the road because
if he's in a different uniform, he's pitching at Citizens Bank Park. This is what he's done on the road, okay? 321 WAR, 5.53 xFIP, and 9 of his 14 home runs are allowed. His home park was a pitcher's park. Citizens Bank Park is not a pitcher's park. It's a hitter's ballpark. This is not going to be a good start for Vargas. I don't care where he is at this point. But the only thing I will say about feeling good about the White Sox that they're pitching Ivan Nova. Again, he's been doing well the past 2 starts, but it's not like he makes you feel good either. So if this is coming down to Vargas or Nova, I don't feel good about either one. I think they're both going to get lit up in this one. So it basically comes down to what bullpen can really damage overall. But I don't like Vargas. I don't like Nova. So this is, I think, a bet you just want to avoid.
By the way, so I pretty much agree with Steve other than this being like a home road start for Vargas. But because I do see this as both pitchers not being that great, I'm just going to go with the White Sox as a plus 170 underdog because it's pretty wide odds.
Home is where your heart is at the end of the day. Yankees and Red Sox are facing off again, this time in the Bronx. Sox are plus 120 to win the 4-game series. Yankees are minus 143. Chase or fade that Boston can take 3 of 4 in New York like they did at Fenway last weekend, Matt.
I just have no idea why you would actually bet this.
Fine.
If you really think that the Red Sox are going to win 3 out of 4 games, just bet them in all 4 games. They're an underdog tonight against Paxton. Just bet them tonight. And if they win, you're getting the same odds as them winning 3 games out of 4.
Okay.
So I just don't see this as a particularly strong bet, even if you think the Red Sox can win 3 out of 4 on the road, which, by the way, I do not.
Well, Steve, do you have interest in this bet?
Ooh, yeah.
We got Brian Johnson, whoever the hell that is. I mean, he's going in either game 1 or game 2 tomorrow. Then we don't know about the status of David Price because he was just put on the paternity list today, but he's probably just trying to get out of pitching against the Yankees. So we'll see what his status is with that. So right there's 2 games right there. I don't think they're going to win one of those 2 games. So, for them to pull out 3 wins here, it seems pretty far-fetched. They did well against them at Fenway Park, but then all of a sudden they just kind of face-planted against the Rays. So this team is so up and down, it's hard to like them in any type of series at this point, especially with that atrocious bullpen behind them. So, no, I don't have any interest in this bet at all.
Yeah, after taking 3 of 4 from New York, the Red Sox just got swept by the Rays, Greg. So your take?
Yeah, I pretty much agree with everything these guys just said. If I have to throw in one more thing also to make it more unlikely, I think the Red Sox will win 3 of 4 games. As Steve said, the pitchers for the Red Sox not really good in this series. The Red Sox bullpen is terrible. So what's probably going to happen is the Red Sox are going to have to go to their bullpen early in a couple of these games, and I really think they're going to have to burn out their long relievers in this series. I just think they're in rough shape right now.
All right. David Price was scheduled to start Sunday night. That's not going to happen anymore.
No. He's expecting apparently the birth of a child, or maybe he's adopting a new dog.
Well, Steve doesn't think Steve actually thinks he might just be avoiding a start at Yankee Stadium. So.
Okay.
Convenient timing on the baby. I know he planned that out. He had his calendar. Okay, this is the day we're gonna do it.
He planned it out 9 months ago.
To the day.
All right. Apologies to Lance Lynn. We ran out of time. Need y'all for Tears of Joy coming up, though, right after we poke over to football, which is right after my conversation with Rockies catcher Tony Walters.
Hey, it's Tyler Nazak here with your DraftKings Fantasy Flash. We haven't heard much from Klay Thompson since he went down with an ACL injury in Game 6 of the NBA Finals. But the Warrior sharpshooter recently spoke out in his first in-depth interview on ESPN, describing his injury as obviously the most tragic part of sports. In the interview, Clay says he's expected to follow a standard recovery time, but he doubted he would be back before the All-Star break. I've heard varying opinion about, especially medically. I don't want to rush it because I want to play until I'm 38, 39, 40 years old, Thompson said. That's my plan, especially because of the way I can shoot the ball. I would love to see the floor this season. I don't know when that is. With a tough NBA Finals for the Warriors, Clay recovering in a major turnover, there is talks that the end is here for Golden State. But Thompson is shutting down that narrative. I mean, we still have Stephen Curry, a two-time MVP, Draymond Green, a Defensive Player of the Year. Adding D'Angelo Russell was an incredible gift for us. I mean, that kid's going to blossom into a superstar in this league. When healthy Clay is back, you better believe he's going to want to prove the Warrior haters wrong.
All right, now we got a special guest joining the program. I want everyone to say what up to Tony Walters of the Colorado Rockies. Good to have you here, my dude.
Hey, thanks for having me on the show. I appreciate it. Yeah, we're here in Colorado. It's a great office over here.
It looks fantastic, as does your mustache, man. You're still rocking it, huh?
Oh my goodness, yeah. It's been a long bet, but I kind of like the mustache now. It takes a little bit of maintenance, but I'm kind of liking it now. So.
I hear it's a big fan favorite.
Yeah, they actually like the mustache. I kind of I thought it was going to creep everyone out, but they're enjoying the mustache.
No. You don't look creepy at all, man. I even see I see the T-shirts they made, like the "Don't Dash" on the stash.
Oh my goodness, I know, right? I know, it's hilarious.
I mean, like
all my teammates make fun of me. Trevor Story for sure.
Oh, they're just jealous because they can't grow the lip sweater like you can.
Yeah, Trev, you're jealous, Trev.
All right, so fourth big league season here. Closing in on a few career highs, including games played, runs batted in, doubles. But wait, there's more. You've already set career highs in hits and runs, so just how comfortable are you feeling now compared to your previous MLB seasons?
Yeah, this year offensively and defensively, I feel very confident in my game. And right now, I feel like I'm in a good spot to where I'm able to really be in the moment and use my thoughts in the right way. And hitting, it's been just keeping my approach, keeping it simple, seeing the ball and hitting it, not trying to make it too crazy. And with defense, I'm just trying to block the ball, throw guys out, put the best pitch calls I can and try to get outs. And I'm having fun doing it. And this year, I'm having a lot of fun and a great team to be on. And yeah.
So, did you do anything different, entering this season, maybe in spring training, than you did the previous few years, or just all that experience is just adding up?
Yeah, I think experience. I think it's the people I've been around, and I think it's just needs simplifying my whole game. Going back to when I was in Little League, I felt like it was just really simple, and I kind of brought it into this year and just kept my approach very, the same every day. My routine, I'm very confident in my routine where I'm at, but the simplicity towards it, I think that's the key to my success this year.
Yeah, I mean, whatever you're doing, it's obviously working. And then you had the postseason run last year. I know it's been a challenging season for you guys this time around, but, thanks to the wonders of the wild card format, I mean, you're currently 7.5 games out of a playoff spot. It is doable here. So, Tony, take me in the clubhouse and just kind of what the mindset is, what you guys are talking about.
Yeah, we're, we have a lot of winning ball players on this team. And I think right now, our mindset as a team is all we're focusing on is just winning that day. And we're trying to accomplish, winning each pitch, not giving away at bats, playing great defense and just winning each day. We're trying to get us to a point where, because our mindset throughout this whole year coming into spring is we want to play more games than we did last year. And, that's our goal still. We have no guys that are in this locker room that have given up. So I think, we're in the mindset of, okay, we need to control the controllable. So that's, be in the moment and winning each pitch at a time and just, have fun doing it too.
Yeah, and you had one of the most memorable hits in Rockies playoff history here. I'm talking a 13th inning single in the wild card game. What do you remember from that at bat?
Oh, it's a blur, but going back, I remember walking up to the plate and just hearing how loud it was. At Wrigley, it gets pretty loud, and got in the box. I remember after that first pitch, I started feeling my feet again, and I was getting locked in. I felt really good, and just hitting. I don't remember the swing or the hit, but I remember getting on first, and I was so excited, and looking at the team and how everyone was so excited. I was just probably one of them. I won't forget that moment, but I definitely want. It's an addictive feeling, but I definitely want that moment again. I could have had that moment without my teammates.
Yeah, was it like this outer body experience?
Oh my goodness, it's unbelievable, and it's something that you just want it over and over again.
For sure, and signing with the Indians out of high school here after being drafted by the team in 2010. I mean, you did some catching back then. You were mostly an infielder until Cleveland, moved you behind the plate prior to the 2013 season. But how hard was that adjustment? Can you explain it to someone like me? I never really played baseball, and maybe people watching at home that don't realize, how much work goes into that.
Yeah, as an infielder, coming up as an infielder, it really did help me in the catching aspect. But mentally, I think as a catcher, what I had to work on at the beginning was knowing your role, knowing, what your job was as a catcher. Your job was different from being an infielder. An infielder, you sat around waiting for a ground ball to get to you, make a good play and throw them out. But as a catcher, you're in every game. So, knowing my role, knowing what my job was to do to help that pitch out on the mound, and learning how to pitch call and block, throw, the physical stuff. I really do believe that infielding helped me, and so. But yeah, I love catching, and it's been a great journey, and it's a really hard position, but it definitely gives you a lot of positivity after games, and you have wins, and you have pitch that doesn't good. There's a lot of great things.
In an interview a couple of years ago with MLB.com, you said that if you weren't in baseball, you wanted to be like a rock star. So do you have some kind of hidden musical talent we don't know about?
I remember, I think it was in middle school I started playing instruments, and that was the first instrument. I went into band. There was all the other classes were all filled out, so I went into band, and the first instrument I went to was a trombone. And then they switched me over to a trumpet, and then a French horn. Then after that, I played the drum set for a little bit, and then actually in the minors I taught myself how to play the guitar a little bit, and that was fun. I like music, and I like to teach myself how to play some instruments, but I wouldn't say I'm a professional at all. I could pick up a trumpet and play some tunes. Not, it might sound funny, but I could. But I'm not great. But I love music, and it's fun learning those instruments.
Tony Walters, man, it was really, really good talking to you. I hope, it looks like a beautiful day there in Colorado. Enjoy it, and crush it this weekend, man, against San Francisco.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you, and thanks for having me on the show.
Okay, if you haven't been paying attention, it's totally fine. We don't really expect you to pay very much attention on a Friday, but earlier this week, DraftKings did release salaries for Week 1 for all the players in the NFL season. We've been breaking down many of them throughout the week. You knew that already. And that trend is going to continue right now, isn't it?
Yeah. I'll start paying attention, too. We've got DK Live's Jeff Ulrich and Steve Buchanan here to lend a hand. $5,700 for Carson Wentz. That is the 13th highest priced quarterback in week one, which is somewhat surprising because the Eagles starter has received the highest number of bets on the DK Sportsbook for MVP in the NFL, with 24% of the bets at plus 1,400 odds. Clearly, DraftKings isn't all that high on him for week one. He's got the Redskins at home. So do you think people are just looking at that plus 1,400 number when going with Wentz for MVP, Jeff?
Yeah, I mean, I'll touch on the MVP thing first. I mean, I think there's a couple things with Carson Wentz. People just remember back 2 years ago, in the almost full season he played, he put up MVP-like numbers. Everyone was kind of touting him. He was going towards winning the MVP, and then he got hurt. And last year, obviously, another injury sort of plagued year. I think people just look at that and say, this is a really good bounce back spot for him. He's got Deshaun Jackson. There's been a lot of hype built mainly by the Philadelphia Eagles beat writers around Carson Wentz too, and the connection with Deshaun Jackson, how good he looks. So I think a lot of that, betting him for MVP is building into the hype. I think that's why people are going to that number. I don't necessarily love it, but I get it. I see that there's probably a path for him to win the MVP. As far as week one salary goes, I'm not into this at all, and it's mainly just the opponent. Washington is one of the slower paced teams out there. We got a pretty big point spread here with a pretty low point total when it comes down to it. And there just doesn't seem like a game where Carson Wentz is necessarily going to go off here for like 4 touchdowns. So I think there's better values out there for week one.
Steve, so take a similar approach to Jeff, the approach that people might be taking as far as the MVP odds, and then lock in on the salary for week one against the Redskins.
I mean, you're getting great value, 14-1 on your money here. I mean, when you look at when he's healthy, I mean, he's a touchdown machine. He's almost good for almost 4,000 yards per season. I mean, the past 3 years, when he's been actually on the field, he's been near that realm every single year. 16 touchdowns, 2016, 33, 21, the past 2 years after that. But yeah, kind of like what Jeff said, in terms of week one, it just doesn't feel like a game where they're really going to need to rely on Wentz. I mean, the Redskins are not going to be, formidable opponents pretty much for anybody this season. So you don't really love the potential for him to go out there and put up a big fantasy performance, because they're probably not going to need him to do so. Even as early as just getting into the second half, they could just run the ball out for the rest of the game there. So Wentz isn't really appealing for week one, but as an MVP candidate, yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense, especially for the odds that you're getting at him right now.
All right, let's see if this makes sense to you here, Steve. Le'Veon Bell, 7,100 for the opener. Too high until we really see what he can do after a full year off, or you all in on this guy?
Yeah, I'm all in on avoiding him for week one. I mean, this is a guy who's sitting there. He's apologizing to all the fantasy players, and that's great, playing up to the crowd just like a politician. But, it was your choice to sit out. And now you're going to a team with arguably one of the worst offensive lines in the league. I know they did make some upgrades, but you still don't feel great about what's in front of him here. We don't know how he's going to end up playing, how he's going to look. There's still a lot to see here with Bell. So for him, as expensive as he is, and some of the guys that are surrounding him a little bit more, what you could pay to get some of the other players in that area, Bell's an easy fade for me in this one. I definitely want to see what I'm getting for as high as he is in salary for week one.
Jeff, Bell was asked this week, where should you draft him in fantasy drafts? He says first, but I feel like, experts like you and Steve here would say that's a horrible idea.
First in the third round.
That's a bad idea. I 100% agree. Don't draft Le'Veon Bell first. That's ridiculous. But, hey, great for the guy to have confidence in himself, right? Look, as far as week one goes, we're talking about the game between Buffalo and the Jets here. It's projected to have the lowest point total of the slate. We're sitting at 38. Wow. Or second lowest point total of the slate. We're sitting at 38.5 right now. It's a close point spread. There's just not enough for me to get behind him here. I'll make a little bit of a case from the fact that the Buffalo Bills did allow a lot of yards to the running back position. It was mainly because their offense couldn't move the ball. So other teams just ran wild against them all season, essentially. So you could see a high workload here from Le'Veon Bell. It is possible that they get off to a good start. It's not really a spot I'm not interested in. The game flow doesn't sound like it's going to be in our favor. The point spreads, everything just points to this being kind of a bad spot. So I'm probably out on Le'Veon Bell week one, but we'll see how the preseason progresses.
Just imagine the nerves he's going to have going in, because he sat out all of last year. He's, as Steve said, he's apologizing to fantasy owners. Like, he's putting a lot of pressure on himself. Adam Thielen certainly did a great job last year, a monster season. The 8th highest wide receiver week one salary, 6,800. Good value for a wide receiver one in a matchup with the Atlanta Falcons, Jeff?
I don't think it's great value just because you have Steph Diggs there taking targets off the other side. The matchup is really good, though. Atlanta was one of the worst teams in giving up fantasy points per game to the wide receiver position last year. I think most people in this matchup, though, will be looking at Dalvin Cook. You're going to hear this all year from me and other analysts, but Atlanta is terrible at guarding against the running back, especially out of the backfield, guarding against some receiving. So Dalvin Cook is going to be the main person here. Obviously, we saw the Vikings trend towards more of a run team towards last year. That's going to continue because they bring back the same offensive coordinator and Kevin Stefanski. So I think Thielen makes for an interesting GPP stack with Kirk Cousins week one, because the Atlanta corners are pretty bad, and he's probably going to get like the off corner, not Desmond Trufant, so their number 2 corner. I think Thielen is interesting from a GPP's perspective, but the play here is Dalvin Cook.
All right, Steve, Adam Thielen, remember, got a 4-year contract extension back in April, so he's got his money. How does he look in week 1?
Yeah, I'm definitely thinking about that extension when I want to roster him for week 1. The problem is with that whole 6K to 7K range, there's just so many other plays that I would much rather take a look at. That range is stacked for week 1. You got Robert Woods going against the Carolina Panthers at 6,400. I like that a lot. Chris Godwin, who's going to be extremely popular against the 49ers, he's at 6,200. And then somebody who I personally love for even just season-long purposes is Tyler Lockett going against the Bengals at 6,000. Like, those are 3 plays that I would much rather take over Thielen. There's nothing wrong with taking Thielen in this matchup, but like Jeff said, Steph Diggs is in the mix. And then we saw how Thielen kind of dropped off really like the second half of the season. And he was that guy that was consistently getting over 100 receiving yards week after week after week. And then once that mold broke, all of a sudden Thielen kind of started really going, on a downward slope. It wasn't like it was a bad thing, but targets were going down, his receiving yards were going down. Obviously, he's still capable of putting up those big numbers, but just look at those 3 guys, and I think in really good matchups as well. I think I would much rather take them.
Yeah, no touchdowns over the final 4 games and less than 7 targets in all 4. So, thanks, Steve.
Steven, I do have one more for you. After the trio of Kelsey, Kittle, and Ertz, I mean, the 4th highest priced tight end is Tampa's O.J. Howard at 5K. Is he the right choice here? I think he's averaged only like 3.6 targets a game over his first couple of years. I mean, coaches have failed to kind of unlock his potential, but maybe Bruce Arians can do that?
So I definitely think that the potential is going to be unlocked this season with the new coaching staff, but Evan Ingram is you just can't ignore it. I mean, especially with the decimation of the Giants wide receivers before we even get a snap in the preseason. It's unbelievable what this team is going through right now. Now you got Ingram. Like, you legitimately might think that he could get double-digit targets in week 1 if they continue to have the issues that they're having here. Without Odell Beckham, obviously, that's a big thing too as well. Last season, he averaged about 4.3 PPR points more per game when Beckham wasn't on the field. So he has to be one of the best options at tight end after those 3 guys. I get the offense is putrid, but who else is Eli going to throw to? If he's not throwing to Barkley, it's going to be Ingram.
Okay, Jeff, where do you sit on this? And how concerned are we Cameron Brate kind of cuts into his production?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of red flags kind of around Howard. There's a lot of positives, too.
Yeah.
The red flags are Cameron Brate, Mike Evans, a lot of different options in the Tampa Bay offense. Bruce Arians traditionally hasn't really used the tight end much in his career, although O.J. Howard, he's never had a player like O.J. Howard. And the other positive, on the positive side, it's a good game script here against San Francisco. And the Tampa Bay Buccaneers project to be one of the higher-paced, pass-happy offenses under Bruce Arians. So I think if you're looking at O.J. Howard, he would be someone you'd include in a game stack if you're looking to roster Jameis Winston, along with some of the 49ers on the other side. That I can definitely get behind, because there's no denying that the upside is there with this player for 100 yards and a touchdown. Pretty much every game he's going to step out when he's healthy. The problem is he falls in a dead zone for DraftKings pricing here. He's too expensive because Evan Ingram is underneath him. There's other cheaper options. Even a guy like Mark Andrews, who has a lot of potential there at 3K, could go down. And then it just doesn't cost much more to get up to a guy like Travis Kelce from 5K. So a tight end, I either want to pay up or pay down. Howard's in a bit of a dead spot for week 1.
All right, gentlemen, thank you very much. A friendly reminder for all of you at home, or if you have one of these things, you can watch our Monday night show. Emerson and I will be hosting DraftKings Fantasy Special, a position-by-position breakdown of all the Week 1 salaries. We're going to take questions from you guys on Facebook. Our top NFL analysts will be here. Adam Levitan in the studio and Pat Mayo. So it should be fun.
It will be great. That's 6 o'clock Eastern Monday night live. So we'll definitely find a way, well, hopefully not to screw it up, but we are perfect for the most part. MLB Tears of Joy is coming up right after this NASCAR price check with Pierce.
Welcome to Price Check. I'm Pierce Dietrich. Let's look at the salaries for Watkins Glen. Whose salary jumped up this week? Kurt Busch. $8,700 up to $10,000. Every time I say he is too expensive, he ends up in the winning lineup. So I'm not going to say it this week. I'm not. $10,000 for Kurt Busch. That's too expensive. Come on. Michael McDowell, 5,700 up to 6,800. He's the greatest road racer to never get a top 10 in a road race. I hear what you're saying. He's always in bad equipment. Well, guess what? He's in bad equipment again this weekend. Jimmy Johnson, 7,600 up to 8,500. The 48 team is now on their second crew chief this year. Maybe it's not the crew chief, just saying. Whose salary dropped this week? Alex Bowman, 9,300 down to 7,600. Track history, not that good at Watkins Glen, but his track history hasn't hurt him this year. Didn't hurt him at Kansas, it didn't hurt him at Dover, and it didn't hurt him when he won at Chicago. Denny Hamlin, 10,200 down to 9,400. Ladies and gentlemen, your 2019 champion, Denny Hamlin. You heard it here first. Save this clip, come back to it in November, and be amazed. Kevin Harvick, 11,700 down to 10,900. Can't wait to see how they're going to mess it up this week. I'm thinking lap 1, turn 1 wreck. That would be awesome. Favorite play of the week, Kyle Busch, 11,600. Let's just call it the Kyle Busch play of the week. He's the best driver this season and every season, and he's the best at Watkins Glen. Joey Logano, 9,100, statistically second best driver this year. Top 10, no, say top 3 at Watkins Glen. Why? Why is he priced near the 8,000s? All right, guys, check out the DK Playbook for your DFS information and needs. If you have NASCAR questions, hit me up on Twitter at @RaceForThePrize. I'm Pierce Dietrich. Catch me on DK Live.
All right, we're back talking baseball, the huge. Steve Buchanan, Greg Ehrenberg, and the Action Network's Matt LaMarca rejoin the program.
MLB Tears of Joy. Breaking down the DraftKings 7 o'clock Tears contest. Contains 6 games, so 12 teams, which I believe makes sense. There are some high-profile names in Tier 1. Steven, who are you going with? And most importantly, why?
You know, for being Tier 1, this tier kind of stinks. Like, there's not a lot of options. Like, there's only 4 guys in here, but there's a lot of
Mike Trout, Rafael Devers.
Yeah, I mean, Devers left on left. Trout again, Clevenger, no thanks. Marte against the lefty, not a good matchup. So it's almost Lindor by default here. He's got a 403 WOBA, 231 isolated power at home against left-handed pitching, and he's been crushing it the second half of the season. 7 doubles, 4 home runs, 11 RBI. You gotta like that new Indians lineup they have there with Reyes, Puig, like just more pitches for Lindor to see. So I love Lindor tonight in this tier. I think he's definitely the guy to pick.
Greg, are you not a fan of Tier 1 as well and the options you have to choose from?
So generally I'll just default to Trout whenever he's in a tier with other guys. However, he's such a just difficult matchup compared to the other guys. Like Clevenger's a really good starting pitcher. So I'm going to agree with Steve and say Lindor here. Dylan Peters has not pitched well to right-handed hitters at all, giving up a 450 WOBA to righties. And Lindor, like Steve said, he's hit really well lately. 4 of his last 7 games, multi-hit games. I don't really think there's anybody I feel strongly about being a good play here other than Lindor. I think it has to be him.
Matty, are we making this a sweep of Lindor?
Yep, got to be Frankie here. 5.8 implied team total. I like him a little bit more than by default, which is kind of how Steve made it sound. But I agree overall that this tier is kind of on the weaker side. Like, for example, Lindor has the highest ceiling projection on Fantasy Labs in this tier, but 2 guys we'll talk about later in Tier 4 and Tier 5 have higher ceiling projections than him. So overall, it's not a great tier, but I do think Lindor is a pretty good play.
Well, hopefully we have a little more positivity and positive reaction to tier number 4. Greg, who do you like in tier 4?
So another Cleveland bat. I really like the Indians' offense tonight, in particular the righties. Something else Steve said that I agree with. They have a better lineup now. They've added Franmil Reyes. They've added Yasiel Puig. Dylan Peters does not pitch well against right-handed bats. So we look at Carlos Santana, and just another guy who we can get in that lineup. I really think that in tiers, the best way to build lineups then is you just load up on the Indians' right-handed bats.
Matt, similar sentiment or going elsewhere outside of an Indian player?
No, I'm going with Jonathan VR. I really like this game between the Orioles and the Blue Jays tonight. I think that both teams are in pretty good spots. And VR batting leadoff against Wilmer Font is a really, really good matchup. I think that he's my preferred option here. He hasn't particularly been swinging the bat well recently, but he's the type of guy that can do some damage with his legs in addition to the bat. And that's the kind of thing that I'm always really looking for in these tiers contests. I want upside, and I think that VR gives you nice upside here.
It sounded like Steve was laughing.
I was going to ask Steve, does this tier stink
I
too?
thought that was a dog yelping.
Yeah, I wasn't sure what it was.
Well, you know what it was? I was yelping because I just feel for all these people who might listen to Matt and go, that's actually a pretty good choice. When I was listing off the guys in the tiers, VR was the first one I crossed off.
Oh.
Yes, I wrote it down on this thing called a notebook for all you kids out there. It's actually, you write on it physically. This is Michael Conforto for me, and it wasn't even close. I think this is such an easy choice here against Trevor Williams. Williams has just been an absolute gas can. And then when you look at what he's done, what he's allowed people, lefties, to do against him at home, 455 WOBA, 5.34 xFIP, and then you look at what Conforto has done on the road against righties, 360 WOBA, 206 isolated power. I think this is an easy one. Conforto's been swinging a really good bat. And for Matt to be a Mets fan and to not even be on this play, it's just astonishing. So, I don't know where he gets his information, but VR, bam.
Steve, I appreciate you bringing up.
I'd just like to say the last time I was on the show was on Monday. I recommended to play John Gray, won everybody all the money. Personally, I finished 4th in the $100 single entry contest myself, so I'll put my resume up against Steve's anytime.
All right, well, write it down in your notebook,
Steve,
right under your little love notes. Do you like me? Please check one.
Back
yes,
to school
no, or
shopping.
maybe.
Steve, great job. The kids, back to school shopping is coming up, so good for you to bring up the notebook.
Used to make the paper like origamis or whatever they're called, right? The little diamond things. Do you remember those?
Yeah.
Probably not. You're way too young. How about tier 5 here? Action Matt, a couple big Philly bats in here.
I'm going right back to the same matchup. I'm going with Kevin Biggio. Batting second in the lineup, which I like. He's done really well against right-handed pitchers. 350 WOBA, 242 ISO. The Blue Jays are implied for 5.6 runs. And again, another good matchup here. I just think that this game has a lot of shootout potential, so I'm kind of loading up on both sides of it.
Steven.
Yeah, it's going to be Ozzie Albies for me. It's not at that point yet, but it's getting to the point where you're only going to play him if he's going against the left-handed pitching, and that's kind of that's the matchup he has here tonight. He's got a 421 WOBA against him, 260 isolated power. All of his power is pretty much against left-handed pitching at this point. So to get him in a low tier like this in a matchup that he's exceedingly excelled in all season long, I think this is a place to play him here.
All right, Gregory, talk to me. Make a pick.
Well, first, I like the idea of Emerson just being some artistic kid, in 3rd grade, folding over paper doves. And
Yeah, what was it? And I said,
probably.
I called it an origami, and I meant the fortune tellers, the paper fortune. I'm sitting here Google imaging it right now. It's incredible, some of the options.
No one cares, they say.
Probably wrote poems too. Gave them out.
I was very good. I was very good. I was very good in art class, by the way, as well.
Greg, who's your pick?
As well as PE.
So Ozzie Albies, I really think that he's the guy here. And like Steve said, just so much better against left-handed pitching than against right-handed pitching. 166 WRC plus against lefties, 94 WRC plus against righties. Good spot for Albies. And the other thing with Alex Wood, only his second start of the season, his velocity was pretty down in his first start. Average fastball velocity, 89.4 miles per hour, way down from what we've seen from him when he's been a good pitcher in the past. So I'm not really all that confident that we see Wood get back to high-level starter again.
All right, we'll talk to this trio in a little bit for Put Up Your Buke, so start
Someone have
up.
a paper fortune teller ready to go for the last block, please. Let's have some fun. It's Friday.
I'm into it. All right, we're talking golf
You are
after
into
this.
it.
It's that time for your DraftKings Fantasy Flash. I'm Taryn Azak. Don't call it a comeback. No, really don't call it one yet. But Carmelo Anthony says he isn't done with the NBA. The 10-time All-Star told ESPN on Friday that his passion to play is back, and that silence is not my surrender. Anthony had an unceremonious ending to last season after being cut loose by the Rockets last November. He played in just 10 games for Houston before sitting out the rest of the 2018-2019 season. I felt like the game didn't want me back at that point in time, said Melo. I'm not sure Anthony's passion to play is all the way back. However, the 3-time Olympic gold medalist was reportedly considered joining Team USA once again for the upcoming World Cup. But ultimately, both sides decided against it. We'll see if another NBA team will give the future Hall of Famer a shot this season, but at 35 years old, Melo is running out of time to prove to people he's worthy of one.
Okay, the Wyndham Championship rolls on down in Greensboro, North Carolina, and like us, you've got questions about who to play this weekend to win some cash.
DK Live's Jeff Ulrich has answers, thankfully. Let's dive into this PGA Weekend Showdown contest. Here are the top options, Jeff, going into the weekend. Webb Simpson, Jordan Spieth, Colin Morikawa, Brandt Snedeker, Rory Sabatini, and Paul Casey. They're all 9,400 or higher. Any interest in them? Or one of them?
First of all, I got the answers. I don't have the good answers. I just got answers, okay?
Yeah, we know.
You're not playing
didn't say
Spieth.
good.
I'll go over why later in the show, but no one's playing Spieth here. At least anyone who follows me isn't going to play Spieth. You're going to play Paul Casey. No bogeys yet on his card. He's still like losing strokes putting somehow, or he's like bottom of the field in strokes putting. Yet he somehow has no bogeys, and he's like in the tournament. He's 3 back. So I love Paul Casey out of the top end. I think Webb Simpson is still a pretty safe play considering how just destroys this course. But Casey's the one playing the best out of this group for sure. He was my pick beforehand on this show, and I'm going to stick with him because he came through the first 2 rounds. So let's go Paul Casey.
Talking about a guy who's coming through the first 2 rounds, Byung-Hun An ended round 1 in the lead. He's atop of the leaderboard after the second round at 13 under. He's 8,500 for the weekend. How interested are you in this gentleman?
Yeah, Benny An is kind of the same story as Paul Casey. I mean, he doesn't have a bogey on his card. He's first in strokes gained tee to green. He's not even putting that well, and he's winning the tournament right now. So that gives you an idea of how just consistently he's hitting the ball. I see absolutely no reason why Benny An can't win this tournament. At the very least, I think he's going to end up in the top 3 for the week because he's just playing too consistent. The putts have not been falling yet, and at some point he's going to get a little bit hot with that putter as well. So I really like this price on Byung-Hun An. I feel like if people are a little bit scared that he's going to regress, I would just take advantage and play him because I see a very good likelihood that he's going to end up winning this tournament.
One of the best methods of being correct is by telling us who is not going to do good. So who is a definite fade, Jeff, for the weekend?
It's Jordan Spieth. I don't know how he's at 9 under right now. And I say that seriously too. I mean, some people are going to laugh. Well, he's a really good golfer. He's a good golfer, but his ball striking is so inconsistent compared to what he's doing on and around the greens. He's holing out all his par putts. He's chipping in from around the green. I know that's part of golf, but consistently the top players do one thing really good, and that's ball striking. Hit their irons, hit fairways. Jordan Spieth is not doing that. He lost another couple strokes with his irons today. He was still bad off the tee. Nothing's changed with that. And at some point, the putter will regress like it does for most players. He's gained 7 strokes putting thus far. Most people, even when they win tournaments, don't gain that many strokes on the greens. So for me, Jordan Spieth, clear fade this weekend.
Yeah, I talked to you on Monday. You weren't pleased about, you weren't high on his odds, so that makes some sense.
I'm actually just noticing Hideki Matsuyama's going to miss the cut. Only is his second missed cut. That's kind of shocking.
Hideki. Don't play him on Bermuda greens, Emerson. Don't do it.
Yep. I know. I forgot you told me that earlier this week. That's my bad. How about someone who is going to make the cut, got off to kind of a slow start in the first 2 rounds, but could rebound over the weekend?
Yeah, there's a couple players we can throw out. The first is Billy Horschel. I talked about Billy Horschel yesterday. His ball striking numbers are good. They're up there. They're not quite as good as Paul Casey and Byung-Hun An, but they're close. Really consistent ball striking off the tee, and especially with his irons. But his putting is atrocious. It's worse than the other 2 players I just mentioned. He's like 100th in strokes gained putting. But Billy Horschel's a guy who over the weekend, he doesn't mind backdooring top 10 events like this, especially weaker fields. He's got a really good record at the Wyndham Classic overall. I think you're going to see a low round or 2 from Billy Horschel over the weekend. I would keep riding him in weekend golf. He just snuck through the cut. He's at -5. Only worry I guess you have is there is going to be an MDF, so like a secondary cut on the weekend. He's a little bit close to that line, but I'd have enough confidence that he's playing well enough that you could roster him.
Okay, Jeff, we need your lock at Wyndham this weekend. Who is it?
I'll go with Casey. I think either one of Paul Casey or Byung-Hun An is going to win, so I'll go with Paul Casey.
All right.
Easy enough. Thanks, dude. Enjoy your weekend. I'll talk to you again on Monday, or actually, I don't really think so. We'll probably talk to you on Tuesday. Then
you could text him.
Because we have our ranking show and stuff and all that.
I'm not invited.
Salary show. I don't think so, dude. I don't think you made
way
the
to tell him.
Analyst, right?
I don't think you made the cut, bro. I'm really sorry.
Way to tell him.
Listen, I don't know if Reed was here because you guys are like a perfect duo. Like, all right. Anyway, we're coming back. One more block in the show. Steve's going to put up his bukes right after Pat Mayo kind of fills us in on the running back situation for the Buccaneers.
Tampa running backs, Peyton Barber and Ronald Jones. Just draft Peyton Barber. He's going in like the 12th round, and he's going to be the running back. He might not be good, but he's going to be the guy.
I vehemently disagree. This is the Ronald Jones gig this year.
It's not. If it was the Ronald Jones gig, we would have heard about that already.
We have started to hear about it, like quietly, like that he's been outperforming Peyton Barber in all the offseason.
Are these like the same as like the whispers you heard about Jimmy Garoppolo potentially being benched that are just unsubstantiated and you may have made up?
I'm just telling you straight up that like Ronald Jones, like last year, there was a lot of stories about his lack of conditioning. Those aren't an issue this year. Put on a little more muscle this year in the offseason. Ronald Jones had literally one of the worst seasons ever for a second-round running back. They want him to win this job. If it's a tie, he's going to win this job. I would take Ronald Jones over Peyton Barber. Peyton Barber had one of the worst efficiency seasons for anyone ever to have 200-plus touches.
Yes, I mean, I completely agree with you. Peyton Barber is not great by any means, but I think his veteran guile with a head coach like Bruce Arians might actually mesh really well. And if he's asked to protect Jameis Winston, I think that could be a key for him. We know that he's not a great pass catcher, but he can handle like 3-4 dump-offs a game. And if Bruce Arians, Bruce Arians isn't running the air raid. Right? Everyone sees him as a very progressive type of coach, but he's not afraid to just sit back and hand the ball off either. And I think that he might want a grinder, someone like Peyton Barber. I'm playing the coach here over what the talent might actually dictate.
Ronald Jones reminds me more of David Johnson, who was a guy he took in the 3rd round when he was at Arizona.
Yeah, but
so that's the reason why I'm kind of on Ronald Jones.
Like, remind you of David Johnson is one thing. Bruce Arians didn't draft Ronald Jones, and Ronald Jones is not as good as David Johnson.
I totally understand that, and I was not implying anything to say. I was not implying Ronald Jones is anywhere near as good as David Johnson.
Yeah, but wait till I just splice that together to make it sound like you did say that, though.
Ronald Jones is as good as David Johnson. Yeah, well, that's why you have to be nice to you at all times.
Exactly. This one I don't really think is a training camp battle. It's Damian Williams, Carlos Hyde, and Darwin Thompson. This is Damian Williams' job. The question is, can he hold on to this job for an extended period of time? I think that's what you were getting at with this.
Yeah, this one is not really a training camp battle per se. He's going to be the guy, assuming he can make it through training camp without getting hurt.
A concussion. Damian Williams, big fan of concussions.
He's just, a guy who's never had more than 50 NFL carries in a season. Everyone's just plugging in for 250. I would very much caution you guys against that.
Last one. I think this one is very interesting, and I think it's more... I don't actually think it's a battle right now. This is one of these things where the internet is making it a battle, where they're projecting Royce Freeman to be really good and Phillip Lindsay to take a huge step back. And I see that case. I completely understand it. But for the moment, even returning from his injury, Lindsay looks like he's healthy. This is going to be Lindsay's job, at least from the outset.
All right, we've got 10 minutes on the nose remaining before we take a long 48-hour break. Best for last, Greg Ehrenberg and the Action Network's Matt LaMarca aim to take down Mr. Steve Buchanan.
Oh, yes, it is. Put up your bukes. Roll the graphic. There it is. Steve looking jacked as always. This is when he reveals his top 3 plays for tonight's 12-game baseball slate. So you're going to include point projections on said plays. Then Greg and Action Matt are going to debate your picks. So let's see who you have for your first buke, please.
Yeah, I absolutely love Steven Matz tonight. I have him at 26 DK fantasy points. The biggest knock on Matz this season has been how poorly he's been pitching on the road. And you go and look at his numbers, and they're absolutely atrocious. But he's facing one of the worst offenses in the league against left-handed pitching in the Pirates. They have a 290 WOBA against them, 150 isolated power, 78 WRC plus. All of those numbers are ranked 27th or worst in the league. And then he just recently faced his club, had 40.3 DK fantasy points against them through a complete game shutout against them. Like I said, I get the numbers, but going against this offense at his salary, I think he's going to go overlooked tonight as well. He's actually one of my favorite pitching options on this slate overall. So I think Matz is in a really good spot to kill it, and hopefully at some low ownership as well.
Okay, Greg, what do we think here, buddy? He went for more than 40 his last time out, but haven't seen him exceed 26, and at least in the 9 games ahead of that.
Yeah, I think Steve's out of his mind. I think I think there's 2 qualifications for Steve liking a player. They have to have the same first name as him, and they have to have done well their last game. They hit those 2 things, and it's a buke. But look at what Matz did prior to that last game. Like Emerson said, he had 17 DK fantasy points, 5, 4, -10, -1.
Ooh.
He had one really good game. It was an outlier, and I don't think we should expect it to continue. And we have to put a little bit of context in it. It came at home. Like Steve said, he's pitched really well at home. Citi Field is a strong pitcher's park. He's a 2.06 ERA when pitching at home this season. He's been solid there. But put him on the road, it's the 6.40 ERA for him. I think he's going to struggle again tonight.
Matt, I feel like you're on Team Steve on this one.
I'm team in the middle, I guess.
Oh, what a cop-out.
What a
You know me. You know me. I'm always sitting on the fence.
None of us are on Team Lamarca.
Steven Matz is not a good pitcher. It's sad because he at one point looked like he was going to be a really good player for the Mets, but every time you think he's turned the corner, he turns around and just lays a complete egg. I would certainly not expect 40 DraftKings points again from him tonight. I don't think anybody does, but it is a great spot. Like Steve mentioned, the Pirates are dead last in WRC plus against left-handers this season. And while he's been poor on the road, PNC is still a pitcher's park. So it's not like he's going into a terrible environment. I think that Steven Matz is definitely a nice play at his option. I'm not sure how sneaky he's going to be. I think that people are going to be on him after throwing a complete game shutout against this same team in his last outing. But at the same time, I think that he can give you decent upside at 7,700. So I like him for his salary. I'm just not in agreement with Steve about the fact that he's going to be sneaky.
All right, Buke number 2.
Yeah, so we're going to go with Brian Dozier here for 16 DK fantasy points. I had this projection even before Robbie Ray was out of this matchup. Now he's been smashed. So now we're going to get Alex Young in this matchup, who's another lefty. If there's one thing the Nationals do well is hit left-handed pitching, and Brian Dozier is one of their best hitters against lefties. He's got a 407 WOBA, a 267 isolated power. I think and on top of that, he's priced like he's facing Robbie Ray. So that is another part of it, too, that has kind of been added into the mix here tonight. I think they're going to do really well against Young. I think the Nationals, like I said, it's a good spot for them overall. I think Dozier at salary, against lefties, I think he's in a really good spot tonight. So I liked him facing Robbie Ray. I like him even more now in this matchup against Alex Young. So I'm definitely going to take him here in this spot.
Okay, 3,400, and as you see on your screen there, folks, he's averaging just under 8 DK points over his last 10. He's only gone over 16 once, and that was against the Dodgers 3 days ago. Matt Lamarca, what do you think of Steve's pick?
It's not a bad play. I mean, the fact that he is 3,400 is 100% based on the fact that he was supposed to be facing Robbie Ray. Like, he should definitely be higher priced tonight. I'm on board with that. But at the same time, there are just so many teams that are in better offensive spots. I mean, the Nats are implied for 4.9 runs right now. There are like 15 teams with an implied team total of at least 5. So I just don't feel the need to go this low down the list when I'm looking at teams tonight. But again, totally hear Steve's point about him being underpriced. So another lukewarm answer from me.
Greg?
You have a take, Greg, for Christ's sake?
Yeah, for sure all the Nationals are underpriced. And here's the thing with Dozier. He's had his best month of the season. He had 141 WRC plus in July, but it just didn't lead to fantasy production. For whatever reason, maybe it's because he hits towards the end of the lineup, or I don't know exactly what it was. But if we look at his last handful of games, he was under 16 DK fantasy points in 11 of those 12. He scored 7 or less DK fantasy points in 9 of his last 12 games. So for me, with such a big slate with so many options, I just don't think there's a need to go there. Like Matt said, there's somebody in a similar price tag, and that's Scooter Gennett, who I much prefer at second base to Brian Dozier. I just don't think that it's worth looking at him when there's so many games on the slate and just better options.
Matt, I was trying to figure out what is different about your backdrop, and I finally figured it out. Your deodorant has fallen over on its side. It's usually standing up straight. It's like my OCD was like going off. And I'm like, what is different?
Yeah,
anyway,
Old Spice is going to ding me on the sponsorship that I get from them. So
yeah,
I'll have to fix that before the next show.
Yeah, man. You're a better influencer than that. Come on. Steven, what about that third Buke, buddy?
Yeah, I'm just glad Matt finally used the deodorant because it hadn't even moved. So, like, it wasn't even getting picked up at all. The next one's going to be James McCann here. I have him at 12 DK fantasy points. He's going up against that trash can Jason Vargas. So these guys are like, oh, can't talk about a road start, whatever. I like James McCann in this spot. He's got a 368. He has a 368 WAR against lefties, 229 isolated power. He's gotten off to a little bit of a slow start here in the second half, but when he's hit for power, they've gone for home runs here. And, it's not like Vargas is shy about giving up home runs. That guy gives up a lot of home runs, and now he's going into a pitcher's park at Citizens Bank Park, which is now his new home. So, good luck with that one. So I think James McCann, 3,500 at the catch position. Good spot to save some salary, get in some of those more expensive bats with some of the pitchers tonight. But I think McCann's in a good spot against Jason Trashcan Vargas.
Well, Greg, who are you more willing to roster tonight, James McCann or DK Live's James McCool?
Whoa!
Oh, wow, for sure, James McCann. So I'm going to agree with Steve here. I've also expressed my disdain for Vargas tonight. Steve would consider this to be a home game, I guess, for McCann. I don't consider it to be a home game for him. But still, I think it's a good spot for him. He's hit lefties really well this year, 132 WRC+. Vargas is just no good. There's really high upside, and basically any catcher going against him. Platoon advantage. I like everything about McCann tonight.
All right, Old Spice, wrap us up and put up your bukes. What do you think?
I want to know where this narrative that Jason Vargas gives up a lot of home runs comes from.
How many have you given up?
I feel like one a start maybe would be a high number, 1.34 homers per 9 inning this season. In a league where every ball flies over the fence now, that's not that high of a mark. He's not a home run prone pitcher.
Majority of the home runs have come on the road. He's away from Citi Field. What's the problem? Let's get your take. Come on.
I just gave you my take. It's a bad play.
Steve, his take is he doesn't feel that strongly about it. That's his take.
I know. Thanks.
This is your worst buke so far. It's nice to see that they let you out of the broom closet finally on this show. But yeah, I mean, McCann, I don't see it. They're implied for 4.4 runs. There's no need to go there. It's a bad play.
All right, we need each of your
calm down.
More, but Steve kept yelling at me.
Before we say goodbye, we need each of your slate-approved picks for this 12-game slate. Steve, why don't you go first?
Yeah, just to spite Matt, it's going to be James McCann. I don't even really like him, but now I do.
Greg Ehrenberg.
A couple of things. First, stack the Giants. Second of all, I don't know how to fold the thing, but I did download a
Thank you.
on my iPad, so
it says girl version on there.
Figure out your future. But Giants are really cheap. They're kind of priced like they're still playing in San Francisco, but they're at Coors Field, so really strong hitters park. And Peter Lambert at Coors, 7.61 ERA this year.
LaMarca, quick.
All the Twins against Glenn Sparkman.
That's a take.
All right, guys, love you. Please join Brendan and myself, 2-hour special starting 6 o'clock Eastern time here at DraftKings on Facebook, Monday, talking salaries, NFL Week 1 salaries, a salary special.